Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh 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 yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I just wanna be the one you love. I just wanna be the one you love. I just wanna be the one you love. And with your admission that you feel the same, I just want you love. I just wanna be the one you love. I just I just wanna be the one you love. And with your admission that you feel the same, I just wanna be the one you love. I just wanna be the one you love. I just wanna be the one you love. And with your admission that you feel the same, I just wanna be the one you love. I just wanna be the one you love. And with your admission that you feel the same, I just wanna be the one you love. I just wanna be the one you love. I just wanna be the one you love. And with your admission that you feel the same, same, same.
know, this young man just texted me right now.
As a consequence of COVID, we have said that we will be adopting a risk-adjusted approach to ease our lockdown to the 4th level. Without any further ado, I will then call upon our Minister of Culture, Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, to speak to us. Minister.
Social distancing. For SABC, I'll take off the mask because they say they don't hear me with the cloth mask. I hope they will, with time, they will hear me. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen of the media, and compatriots at home, just to remind ourselves that last week, the President announced that we are going to move from level 5 to level 4, and that we are not lifting the lockdown per se, but we are adopting a risk-adjusted approach where we will progressively allow the economy to function whilst at the same time taking precautions to make sure that the spread of the virus is contained. And then on Saturday, we spoke to you about what that might entail. And that was a whole document on which the regulations would be based. But we decided that, government decided that we must at least consult the public. So we put that document in public and asked for comments. And we did receive the comments. Some of the issues were taken on board. Others were not easy to take on board in relation to the spread of the virus. So I will mention some of those that we were able to take on board. But let me just say, thank the public, because there was a good response, even though the time was short. There were over 70,000 submissions, though some of them came after the deadline. And also there were about 800 and something from the business sector. So it was a good response, and we thank everyone who responded. Others, of course, sent us SMSs and calls and didn't necessarily send submissions. So I will now go to the things that, before I go to the regulations, one of the most popular submission was on exercise. Over 22,000 people wanted exercise. But I'll come back to what the regulations say about exercise. Let me just say that, again, as we said last time, we still expect everyone to be at home. Every person must be at home. And we will then mention the exceptions. And that you may only leave home if you are going to work or perform any function that is allowed under level 4. So you are allowed to go to work on all things that are on level 4. You are also allowed, as was in level 5, to go out to do your shopping. We will also say what kind of things you can now buy. Before, it was mainly groceries, mainly pharmaceutical products, toiletries, and those kind of things, baby clothes. But as I talk about regulations, I will also say what more things we can now buy. And of course, we also are saying that children can move. We were informed by the public that lots of children were, some of them had visited grandparents, some of them had visited uncles, aunts, and so on. And they are allowed now to move back to their homes. And the co-parenting movement is also allowed. There is also, you can also leave to go and exercise. We did stress last time that the president said exercise will be allowed under very strict conditions. And we said we will announce those strict conditions when we announce the regulations. So under these regulations, you can cycle, you can run, you can walk, but it will have to be within your neighborhood, within about 5 kilometer radius of your neighborhood, your home. And it will also be not under organized groups, can't run as a club or as a group. But you also can only do that between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. So 3 hours, we can all cycle, run, walk within our residence, not in organized groups, because we still need to keep to the health, social distancing, and we also need to limit then the time. So that is about the exercise that so many people were longing for. We are also saying that in the evenings, though more people will be going to work under level 4 than under level 5, because under level 5 it was really essential services basically. But now there'll be more people going to work. But when you come back from work, you have to be at home. It's not a license for now coming back from work, visiting your relatives, visiting your friends. No, you have to come back and go back home. So between 8 p.m. and 5 a.m., if you are not having a permit to be out, you cannot be out. So you have to be at home between 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. And of course, there are people who work in Gauteng, but they live in Northwest, or they live in Mpumalanga, or they live in Limpopo, in the neighborhood, and they commute every day. If they are supposed to go to work, they will then have a permit to show that they are allowed. And when the schools do open, whenever, if there are kids or university students who have to commute in that way, they also will have to have a permit. We also know that there is no movement between provinces. Now, this is very important because provinces are at different levels of the infection. Some have a much higher rate of infection. So we don't want those who are at a higher rate of infection to keep moving to those who are at a moderate rate of infection and then increase the infection in those provinces. So movement between provinces is still not allowed. Of course, funerals are still allowed. You can, under very strict conditions again, go to the funerals. If you are a close relative and it's not changed from what it was, what it is as we speak today, only those close relatives are allowed, and under the same conditions. They have to have a death certificate, they have to have a permission that they will get from police station or a magistrate. So it's still like that. It's also still the same that you can't have night vigils. But it's also important during the week not to have crowds, because the infection will also take place during the week if a lot of people come to the home of the bereaved at the same time. So we know that in our culture, fanesio tutuza and console the family, but we must not go in big crowds. And the funerals, we must take all the precautions, including sanitizing, gloves for those who are digging the graves and not sharing water and all those things. So funerals, it will be like that. Now, there were people, as we all know, N2, N1, N3, all the national roads were full. As soon as the president announced that there will be a 21-day lockdown, people decided to move from some of the major centers like Joburg, Durban, and so on. They went to their homes. Some of them would need to come back for work if their companies are opening. Some of them went there, but they ordinarily reside in another province. So there will be a once-off allowance for people to move from the provinces they are in to the provinces that they are going to be working in, and to move if they were not at home, if they were visiting somewhere and they were locked down there, to come back home, once off. And once they've arrived, they cannot go home weekends, days, some days decide I'm going to Limpopo, I'm going to KZN. No, once you come back until the end of level 4. So it's a once-off movement. And I think all of us must understand it. It's a once-off movement from one province to the other. And once you are in that province, there's no commuting going up and down. Weekends going this way, after the weekend coming this way, no. So I just thought I should stress that. And of course, my colleagues will talk a lot more on the industries. But even the industries that are going to be opened, retailers, manufacturing, whatever, hardware shops, it's important for them to prepare properly, because their health protocols still need to be observed. Sanitation, PPE, where it's needed, masks are mandatory, and of course, social distancing. There is no industry that is supposed to undermine those things. So it's important for them to come prepare, so that when the more employers come, the company is ready, is COVID-19 ready. And it's important because if you are not COVID-19 ready and people come, you don't screen them, they come and start working, you don't adhere to the protocols, sooner or later, there will be a spread of the virus in that company. And that company will be forced to close. So it's good to prepare properly, to spend a bit of money making sure that you are COVID-19 ready so that you can work for much longer without many problems. So that is very important. It doesn't matter what company it is, those preparations are important. And it's also important that workers should come in a phased manner, especially in those industries where there are thousands of people who are coming back to work. You can't just suddenly have thousands of people arriving at work on the first day. So it's important to do that in a phased manner and to have a proper plan that is known by the workers and by everyone that you can keep in the company, that this is our COVID-ready plan. And this is what we do in the company to make sure that there is no spread, not just the preparations for arrival, but also when work is continuing, what are the measures that each company is going to take. And the employers must know so that if those measures are not adhered to, they can raise an alarm. But also the departments that work with certain sectors may want to monitor and make sure that those companies do actually adhere to that. In terms of, now I was talking about movement of people within the country. Now our borders, the sea borders, ports, the airports, the land ports of entry are still closed. So our borders are not open except for goods that are arriving into the country or leaving the country, especially to our neighboring states. The movement of people across the borders is only allowed under very exceptional circumstances, like South Africans returning home who were stuck somewhere. When they return, they must be quarantined for 14 days before they go to their families or their homes or to work or anywhere. That's very important because we know that some of them will be coming from very high-risk countries where the infection is much higher than it is here. And so it's important for them to be quarantined so that we know when they come out to go to their families or to the communities, they do not have COVID-19. And people citizens of other countries who are stuck here during the lockdown, who want to be repatriated, there is a process that is coordinated mainly by DECO and embassies to repatriate them so they can leave the country. But otherwise, the ports are only opened for goods that are coming in, imports or exports that are going out of the country. And tourism will also assist those tourists who were quarantined far away from the ports to make sure that they come to the ports on time for their flights. So those are the movements of people. And again, recreational visits are not allowed. Now I'm going to go to things that are not allowed. We are saying people should not be evicted during this time from their residences, but also people should not take advantage of that and think they can now go and occupy a building illegally because they are not going to be evicted, or occupy land illegally or houses illegally. Only because the real estate and rentals and hotels and all those things are not yet open. So that's why we are saying that it would not be allowed. And of course, the courts, if people go to the courts will then also look at that matter. In terms of transport, public transport, there will be taxis as they are now, private cars as they are now, e-hailing as there is now. But because more people will be going to work, then other forms of transport like buses and rail would be open, but under strict hygiene conditions and health. But also the Minister of Transport will say how this will happen. He will issue directions of how this will happen. And transportation of cargo, as I said, things that are manufactured here that are allowed, and for export, they can be transported to the ports for export. They can also be transported internally. And we are now saying all agricultural products are allowed to move to the ports to be exported, including wine, including wool, including many other things for export, agricultural products, and also other things that we produce for exports can now go to the ports and be exported. And things that are coming from the ports, those that are allowed under level 4, can also be transported around the country. And we are saying that places where people normally gather, there is a whole list. You will see it in the Gazette. Places like public parks, sports grounds, swimming pools, beaches, and flea markets, many other things, nightclubs, casinos, theaters, you name it, it's still not allowed. So people are not allowed to go to those places. Restaurants are not allowed for sit down, but they can deliver food to your home. You can order for those who are willing to do delivery. And also takeaways will be allowed, but delivery to your home instead of all of us going to crowd there. Even in the townships, we hope there'll be a new business boom up around delivery. So those things will be allowed only to be delivered. The places where the public visit and they are controlled places like correctional services, remand detention facilities, police holding cells, military detention facilities, health establishments, those will still be controlled, and you can only go there under conditions that are allowed. Like in hospitals, they can say when you can come and when you can't. Permission. If you arrive at that place and you have no permission to be there, or no reason to be there, then you'll be turned back. Then there are things in the economy that will continue not to be allowed. As we said, alcohol is not allowed yet on level 4. On Saturday, we had said we're consulting. In that consultation document, we had consulted about allowing cigarettes and related products, tobacco, and as you remember, even at the press conference itself, there was quite an opposition to that. And even in the public comments, there was quite a lot of opposition. More than 2,000 people opposed it. And of course, the government then took that into consideration, debated the matter, looked at it, and decided that we must continue as we are when it comes to cigarettes, tobacco products, and related, that we should not open up the sale of products. And the reasons are health related. As you know, besides the effects of tobacco itself on the person's lungs, but also the way sometimes tobacco is shared does not allow for social distancing, but also actually encourages the spread of the virus, because when people share a cigarette, obviously if one of them has the virus, it will be shared amongst them, and then they'll go home and then spread it at home. And even those who do tobacco and make I don't know what you call it, like a zol in Boza. Yes. Sometimes when they zol, I'll read at some stage what one person said about that zol. Because he says when people zol, they put saliva on the paper and then zol. And then they share that zol. So it means they are also if one of them has a virus, they are sharing that person's saliva, but also they are moving saliva from one to the other. So there were lots of health-related reasons, COVID-19 related reasons why people said we shouldn't open on tobacco. So the sale of tobacco and tobacco products, e-cigarettes and related products is not allowed. It hasn't been allowed, it's still not allowed. Just like alcohol, liquor, all forms of liquor are not allowed in terms of sale. But even if you make your own liquor at home, if you start giving it to others, distributing it and selling it, it's also not allowed. So the sale, the distribution of liquor is not allowed, only for export. So those are some of the things that are still not allowed. And there was a lot of discussion about this, and in the end, the government listened and took heed of what the public was saying, especially around the health issues and the fight against COVID issues. So I will not go into details. Last time we also spoke about how much the non-sale of alcohol has freed the hospitals. Our emergency hospitals are normal now. Our emergency units are normal. Our ICU are not filled with people who have been stabbed, shot, people who have been raped, and so on. So the non-sale of alcohol is assisting in the fight for COVID. Besides that, alcohol attracts crowds. Very few people enjoy drinking alone. They want to drink with other people. But besides that, it means that the police can do what they need to do, and all the enforcement officers. The hospitals can look after the sick, not after the emergencies that come from the effects of alcohol. And we know even professors in the hospitals, doctors are happy because they can now concentrate on looking after people who are sick with all sorts of other illnesses, including COVID. So then in terms of businesses, my colleagues will talk a lot more about that, but some of the things remain, like energy, Eskom. Eskom is supposed to give us electricity. So the mines that supply Eskom with coal were opened and they will remain open. And Eskom can work at full capacity depending on the demand. Mining, it's maybe fuel. There'll be more people now on the road needing fuel to go to work and more transport. So refineries may now go to full capacity, including other facilities that provide energy and fuel, amongst which there will be furnaces, smelters, and some other plants. So that will be allowed. Mining, as we said even last time, will be allowed at 50% capacity, except the open cast mining that can go up to 100%, just like the coal mining that goes to Eskom. And there will be strict conditions under which the miners come back to the mines. And the department has developed a very extensive directions to the employees and employers on what needs to be done. What do we have in our regulations? It just highlights of things that need to be done, but there is a very detailed document that the department has developed together with the unions and employers. Of course, there will be fines and penalties for some of the offenses. If you do something that you are not supposed to do, some of the things will mean fine or even imprisonment. The Minister of Agriculture is here, so she'll talk a bit more about the agriculture. But basically, agriculture, hunting, forestry, fishing, beekeeping, and all the related things will be allowed. So she will expand on that. I won't go any further. Electricity, gas, water supply is permitted as it has been permitted. I won't go any further. The Minister of DTIC is here, Trade and Industry, and competition is here. So he will expand on all the other areas, manufacturing, wholesale, retail. But let me say that one of the things that came out strongly in the public comments, people wanted hairdressers to be opened, a lot of people. But unfortunately, at this point, it's not possible because those kind of services, hairdressing, manicure, pedicure, the person is close. There is no social distancing. People are touching and so on. So we heard you, but we can't allow it at this point because it's too risky for the spread of the virus. So we know that it was something that a lot of people asked for. But what we have added in the things that can be bought now are products for foot and hand, manicure, pedicure products, so that at least you can do it. You can buy those things and do it at home. The hair care, maybe, who knows, maybe the hairdressers can open online lessons for people on how to do their hair. But for now, it is not possible. When the risks are gone, that will be opened. But I thought I should just say, because it was one of those popular requests. The wholesalers, one of the things that people requested, obviously, are winter clothes and all the things that we need for winter. So that is going to be allowed because it's important for people to be warm, even for the fight of COVID, of flu, and for health in general. Because if you've got flu and there's COVID on top of that, it becomes a big problem. So that is going to be allowed. And of course, all the things that are used, like fabric for making face masks, because cloth face masks are now very important. Heaters, bedding for winter is going to be allowed. And of course, we are still encouraging people who can work at home to work at home. So we are also allowing the telecom services and infrastructure, information and communication technology services, even for private homes, not only for essential services, because we're encouraging people to work at home. So if your computer is broken or something, or you want a new computer, you can now get that. And of course, postal services and courier services will also be permitted for the level 4. There will be on some of the things, media and entertainment, online services. In fact, Minister Mthembu should have spoken about that. Maybe he's still going to talk about it. The productions for local broadcast, live streaming, the creative sector, and some of the live streaming would be around the messages on COVID. But he can expand on that, newspapers and broadcasting. The financial and business sectors will be opened, but still we encourage them, those who can work at home, to work at home. Accommodation, as I said, hotels, guest houses, all that is not allowed except for quarantine or for essential services for now. And of course, restaurants and takeaway, those who sell hot food can only do it online, and it would be delivered to the people to minimize the contacts and to minimize lots of people leaving their homes, going to these places. And those places then will be opened between 900 hours and 1900 hours. And so that workers can also get time to then go home before the curfew. And as I said, for export, all the ports will be open, especially the sea, but also the air for exports, and the land, especially for neighboring states that would be importing things. So transport and logistics will be there. And repair for cars. People will be going to work and they will need their cars. Tow trucks, emergency repairs also of homes, plumbing, electrician, locksmith, all those things will be there because they are necessary for work. And also in private homes, people will be allowed to work, who look after the sick, who look after mentally ill, who look after people with disability, people who work, who look after children, they will be allowed. But also live-in staff will also be allowed. So, and government will open some of the services, but there will be other services like licensing, permitting deeds and master's offices, birth and death certificates. My colleague is there. He'll talk about all those documents that need to be fetched as well. The municipal essential services will be open. And of course, the police and all the other enforcement officers and also services of Chapter 9 institutions, Parliament, local councillors, IEC, all those will still be available. And they will then decide what staff do they need for the work they have to do for now. Medical and veterinary services, as was there before, it's still there. Cleaning, sanitation, pest control, sewage, waste and refuse removals is still there. What we have also opened now is recycling. Glass, paper, plastic, metal, tires, and other things that need to be recycled is now open, which means the informal recyclers also will be able to work. Social work services are also allowed, counseling services, support to gender-based violence, care and relief activities are permitted. Wildlife management, anti-poaching, animal care and veterinary services, as I said. Funerals are allowed, so all the services that relate to funerals are allowed. Some trade union staff will be allowed. In terms of education, I will not comment on that until the education departments say what needs to be done. So it's not here because that discussion that they need to do has not been completed. I think safanele sifaka ama-mask ngoba i-COVID iseyinkinga kakhulu, legciwane liseyinkinga. Kodwa sithi kufanele ukuthi senze konke kokulwa naleli gciwane, kodwa futhi sithi ukuvula kancane ezomnotho khona abantu bezoqala ukusebenza noma ngezuba yiwo wonke umuntu, kodwa solo suvulela kancane umnotho sibona ukuthi kuhamba kanjani, igciwane malehla siphinde sivule, malehla siphinde sivule, kodwa malibhebhetheka siyavala sibuyela ku5. So sithemba ukuthi sonke sizobamba iqhaza ekutheni lingabhebhetheki leli gciwane khona sokwazi ukuthi umnotho usuvule negciwane lingabhebhetheki, siphinde sehle futhi siye ku level yesithathu sivule futhi. So lo msebenzi owethu sonke, it's all our responsibility, it's our collective responsibility, collective challenge, and we must make collective sacrifices sonke. Suvunyelweke kodwa ukuphuma mangabe inkampani yakho isivuliwe ukuthi iyasebenza ikubizile ukuthi uzosebenza, uzovunyelwa ukuthi uphume mawuye emsebenzini, uzovunyelwa ukuthi uphume mawuyothenga ukudla nezinto ezivunyelwe ukuthenga njengeingubo zasebusika nama cellphone nezinto ezinjalo ezivumelekile, uzovumeleka ukuthi uphume uyothenga lezo zinto. Noma ufuna izinto zakadokotela uzovunyelwa, kodwa kufuneka isikhathi esiningi ube sekhaya. Mawungekho emsebenzini ube sekhaya, asikavunyelwa ukuthi sihambe sibe uvanzi siyovakashela ihlobo, siyovakashela omakhelwane, siyovakashela abangani, asikafiki lapho. Kusafanele ukuthi noma ngabe uyasebenza ubuye emsebenzini uze ekhaya. Yiko sithi ngaphandle mawu nemvume yokuthi umsebenzi wakho ufuna usebenze ebusuku, kuzofanele ube sekhaya kusukela ngo8 ntambama ngehola lesishagalombili kufanele ube sekhaya kuze kube ihora lesihlanu. Kodwa ke njengoba sasishilo ngomgqibelo ukuthi sisenza nje inhlolomvo encane yesikhathi esincane ngalezi zinto esasisho, nakhuluma into nje abantu abebeyifuna kakhulu ukugijima no exercise. So kuzovunyelwa njengoba sashilo, kodwa kuzovunyelwa ngendlela ethe uqina. So kuthi sithi kuzovunyelwa ukuthi ungawalka, ungagijima, ungagibela ibhayisekili lakho ngakwakho, hayi ukuthi bese usuke ePitoli uyogijima eGoli, suke eThekwini uyogijima eMkungundlovu, funeka ugijime la ngakwakho amakhilomitha 5 nje, noma uya ngakuphi, noma uya eMpumalanga ngakwakho, noma eNtshonalanga yakwakho, noma uya ningizimu yakwakho, noma uya kuphi, kodwa kube nje kungadluli amakhilomitha 5. Futhi uvunyelwa ukugijima, hayi nibe niqoqane dasambeni siyogijima, noma iklabhu yeni niqoqe ithi asambeni siyogijima, cha, kufuneka nizigijimele nje. Gijinywa kusukela ngehora lesi-6 ekseni kuya ngehora lesi-9 ekseni, amahora 3 avunyelwe ukuthi ugijime. Sithe qalwe ngehora lesi-6 ngoba maqalwa ngelesihlanu kusuke kusemnyama, ngcono sekuthe ukukhanya. Mawuqeda ukugijima futhi ubuyele ekhaya ngaphandle mawuye emsebenzini noma uyokwenza lezi zinto engizibalile. Siphinde sithi imhlangano nemisebenzi nemishado noma yini akavunyelwa. Akavunyelwa futhi ukuthi uye emapaki, uye kumasine ekobuka ithombe, akavunyelwa nje ukuthi uphume ekhaya ngaphandle uma uyosebenza noma uyokwenza lezi zinto engizibalile. Nokuhamba usuke kwesinye isifunda kwelinye iphondo uye kwelinye usuke kwenye indawo iprovince uye kwenye akavunyelwa ngaphandle uma ngabe kubuyiswa ingane ezazivakashela ogogo nomkhulu nomalume nazo zobuyiswa kanye hayi ukuthi njalo nje zolozivakasha mase zibuyile ngaphandle kwalaba abazali abangasahlali ndawonye omunye uhlala la omunye uhlala la ingane ihlala komunye umzali kodwa kufanele ukuthi ngesinye isikhathi kivakashi yobona lo munye abantu abahamba ngesikhathi kuthiwa kuzohlalwa emakhaya bathatha isinqumo sokuthi ayibona bafuna ukuya kwamanye ama-province bayovaleleka khona uma kufuneka babuye beze emsebenzini noma sefuna ukubuya beze emakhaya abo kuzovuleleka ukuthi babuye kodwa kanye mawubuya wazi ukuthi usubuyile so sesixoxa indaba yokuthi uyahamba futhi mhlawumbe mase kudlule ulevel 4 so mawahamba azi ukuthi uyabuya kuzuthi mase kuyimpela sonto usuthi hayi sengifuna ukuvakasha futhi ngiyahamba aya kukho lokho mawubuyile ubuyile la ukhona laba abahlala kwenye province besebenze kwenye la emnceleni yama province uma inkampani yabo seyivuliwe bazoba nemvume abazokwazi ukukhombisa amaphoyisa endleleni ukuthi beze emsebenzini baya nasekhaya nezikole mase kuvuliwe makukhona abafundi abenza kanjalo nabo bonikezwa imvume kodwa nje ukuthi uzoloku uvakashela ama-province amanye cha kodwa ke umncwabo usavunyelwe kodwa imigomo leyayibekiwe ukuthi obana bangakwazi ukuhamba basuke kwenye indawo baye emncwabeni kwenye indawo isenjalo ayikashintshi nokuthi bangaka abantu abakwazi ukuya emncwabeni akashintshi 50 nokuthi futhi umlindelo awukashintshi awuvunyelwa umlindelo esifuna ukusho futhi esifuna ukucela ukuthi phakathi nesonto manizoduduza akufuneki ukuthi nizogcwala ngoba futhi igciwane liyakwazi ukubhebhetheka kanjalo kufuneka ukuthi nizame ukuthi ningazogcwala la ekhaya phakathi nesonto bese kuthi ngomncwabo bese nithi hayi abantu 50 kodwa phakathi nesonto nje kuzogcwala u100 kuzogcwala u50 kufuneka nje kuze abantu abancane kabi mangabe bayeza abaqondene nefamily noma abaqondene nokukhona bazokwenza lapho okuqondene nokulungisela umncwabo kodwa nje ukuthi kuzogcwalwa siyacela hayi kabi siyazi ukuthi isiko lethu ukuthi makushoniwe sonke siyoduduza kodwa senzele ukuthi ningathi nizoduduza kushoniwe bese kwenze ukuthi futhi bese kushona abantu abaningi ngoba sebetholele ligciwane kade bezoduduza sithi ke futhi abantu fanele bahlale emakhaya njengoba sengishilo mabebuye emsebenzini bangalo bezulazula umnotho uyavulwa kancane kodwa kukhona izinto ezingavunyelwe njengokuthi kuxoshwa abantu la behlala khona kulesikhathi ngoba kuzoba nzima ukuthi bahambe bayofuna indawo yokuhlala kodwa futhi lokho akusho ukuthi kufanele uyohambe nje uyothatha indawo nje ongeyona yakho ngoba wazi ukuthi kuthiwa abantu abasuswa uzosuswa phela mawenza njalo noma uvela uyongena endlini ongeyona yakho ongayinikiwe ngoba uthi akekho ozongisusa uzosuswa kufanele umthetho uhlonishwe ungene endlini ngokungemthetho nokuthatha indawo ngokungemthetho akuvunyelwe kodwa futhi sithi ukuthi uxoshwe udingiswe ngalesikhathi akungavunyelwa ngoba indlela yokufuna enye indawo izoba nzima okunye ke sizwile ukuthi nithi nifuna ukwenza inwele azisekho right, but asikwazi ukuvumela. Ziningi into enjengalezo esingakwazi ukuyivumela ngoba igciwane lingabhebhetheka, ngoba asikwazi ukuthi mawuyokwenza inwele awukwazi ukuthi lo muntu okwenzayo akabe imitha no-half, icanti no-half amele wena ube la. Kufuneka nithintane, bamba inwele zakhe kanti usondelane. Manje lokho kuzokwenza ukuthi igciwane libhebhetheke. Nenzipho, mawenza inzipho zomuntu ufanele uzenze la ezandleni zakhe, umbambe. Nalapho ke sithi akugezi ulunga, kodwa izinto zokwenza ikhanda, izinto zokwenza inzipho nezinyawo konke kuzothengiswa, ukwazi ukuzenzela wena emakhaya. Okunye abantu bebefuna ukuhamba ukuthi bahambe baye kule province, basuke kule bavakashe, asikafiki lapho. Ngeke sikwazi ukuvuma ngoba kuzokwenza igciwane libhebhetheke. Enye into ke enishilo indaba kaGwayi ukuthi abantu abaningi bathe abawusupport uGwayi, abangaphezulu kwe2,000. Kanti kule yanto esasilethile sasithe mhlawumbe uGwayi ungavunyelwa, kodwa utshwala cha. Kodwa ke ngoba uhulumeni olalelayo siye savuma ukuthi hayi asuyeke uGwayi. Ngizoniquotela, ngizocaphuna nje omunye umbiko esawuthunyelwa usihlalo wendlu yamakhosi ase KZN. Ngizocaphuna ke, ngiyacaphuna manje. Uthi lento kaGwayi ngicela niyibhekisise kakhulu, izobhebhethekisa kakhulu igciwane. Ake imiswe ikakhulu emakhaya nasemijondolo. Abantu ababhemayo basonga imboza, umuntu ayifaka amathe akhe ayibophe abheme anike omunye ayithathe naye abheme. So ingaqhubekisa ibhebhethekise igciwane. Ake uvalwe please, ngiqineke ukumcaphuna. Sengisho ukuthi bekukuningi abantu bekhuluma ngokuvikela igciwane, ukuthi ukubhema kwenza ukuthi igciwane libhebhetheke. Omunye wathi washo ke naye wathi abantu mabebhema kakhulu abangenayo imali yokuthi lo muntu abe nephakethe lakhe lasiglidi bayabhemsana. Omunye athi skefu, nomunye adonsa anike nomunye adonse, nomunye athi skefu ngale adonse. Ngathola ukuthi abantu aba5 noma ngaphezulu babhema usiglidi owodwa. Igciwane ke lapho liyabhebhetheka. Iyo into eyenze ukuthi uhulumeni alalele athi hayi makunjalo noma besicabanga ukuvula asingabe sawuvula, ngoba kezwakala ukuthi yini abantu bethi ungavulwa. Notshwala ke sasiveli sithe sifuna ukuzwa ukuthi masingabuvuli hayi asizobuvula ke nabo. Niyazi ukuthi no professor baseyibhedlela kade bekhuluma bencoma ukuthi lento yokuthi utshwala sagcwali abantu abalimele nabalinyaziwe. Okusho ukuthi abantu begula bephethwe iCovid bazokwazi ukuthola indawo zokulala esibhedlela. Nalapha engosini egumbini labagula kakhulu isimo sabe sesibucayi bazoba nendawo, ngoba ayizuvalwa ilabantu abanezinhliziyo ezigwaziwe abalimele kakhulu okufanele nabo bathathe lemshini edingwa abantu beCovid. So ngempela ke kwabonakala ukuthi uGwayi notshwala ke biyekwe, ngoba kokubili kuyingozi ekulweni naleli gciwane. Akusho ukuthi ke kovalwa sekuvaliwe nomphelo la eSouth Africa. Kuvalwe nje njengoba kuliwa negciwane. Mase kungasaliwa negciwane kuba enye into. Kodwa kwamanje sakhuluma ngokulwa negciwane. Kuzovulwa ke futhi ke izimboni kodwa ozakwethu bakhona. Angizusho kakhulu nezinkantolo nalo phethe izinkantolo osiphathela umnyango ukhona uzokhuluma nabama TV no broadcaster ukhona uMinister uMthembu uzonaba nowezolimo namahlathi nokudoba naye uzonaba nokugcina inyosi naye uzonaba ngaloko ngoba beningayithathi kancane inyosi niyazi ukuthi inyosi mazingaphela ezweni singafa sonke ngoba ngeke kube khona ukudla ngeke kube khona lutho inyosi zibaluleke kabi ngaphandle kojulo lwesidlayo kodwa zibaluleke kabi kwi-value chain yokudla ngoba zenza angisazi kwakuthiwa yini pollination ngesizulu kodwa zenza leyo nto sokuthi ukudla kube khona so uzobazonaba ke angisezuchitha isikhathi ngokubalula indawo lezo zinto ngoba bakhona bazonaba ngalezo mboni ezivuliwe engifisa ukugcizelela nje ukuthi izimboni kufuneka zithathe inyathelo zokulwa naleli gciwane kube nemiqingwe khona namaplana khona khombisayo ukuthi kule nkampani sivikela kanje iCovid nabasebenzi bayazi leyo nto ukuthi ivikelwa kanjani nabazofika bezomonitor bafike bathola ukuthi cha nansi iplan futhi iyalandelwa kubaluleke kakhulu ngoba izimboni mazingalandeli abasebenzi bazongenwa ileli gciwane bahanjelwe abasebenzi abaningi nemboni ivalwe ngoba phela mangabe sekunabantu abanegciwane abaningi lapho leyo mboni izovalwa so kubalekile ukuthi nabo noma usomabhizinisi omncane kufanele ifonyo lezi zifakwe kugezwe izandla icathi no half phakathi kwabantu ukuze sivikele leli gciwane angibongeke kakhulu ukuthi nathumela imbiko nosomabhizinisi bathumela uzakwethu uzochaza okunye ababekusho nokunye sikwazile ukwenza nokunye sisazokwenza ngoba lo mqingo le awubhaliwe phela etsheni njengoba isimo siya ngokuqhubeka makukhona izinto esibona ukuthi hayi mhlambe kuhamba kahle ngathi ukuvulwa kancane futhi siyokwazi ukuzivula kodwa makungahambi kahle ngeke sikwazi so ngithi ke siyabonga kunina nonke eSouth Africa for taking COVID-19 seriously and our condolences to all those who have lost their lives especially because of COVID, but we have a collective challenge, a collective responsibility, and we must make sacrifices in the short term so that in the long term we can deal with this challenge and gain our lives better back from COVID. So I thank you. Ngiyabonga, ngiyalebuka. Enkosi.
Thank you very much, Minister Dlamini Zuma. We will now call upon the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition to come and speak to us in the area that he's been allocated to speak on. Minister Patel.
Thank you very much, colleague. Good evening, fellow South Africans and members of the media. Thank you very much, 19. My colleague, Minister Dlamini Zuma, both on Saturday and today set out the overall framework within which we are dealing with the reopening of the economy. To recap briefly, the risk-adjusted approach that President Ramaphosa spoke of has three components. The first is a new alert system to measure the degree of risk that we face with the spread of COVID-19 with 5 levels of risk. Level 5 is the highest, level 1 is the lowest. Second, a system of industrial classification to indicate which economic activities will start when we move from level 5, where we are now, to level 4. And it allows every South African then to see how we are affected by the reopening of the economy. And third, a new comprehensive public health and social distancing set of measures that will apply in society, in the workplace, in public spaces, at shops, everywhere. The purpose of the new approach is to align or balance the level of openness in the economy and social activities with a level of risk to enable us to restart or increase as many economic activities as possible given the health risk. The main point is to save lives, to save as many lives as possible and avoid the personal devastation of losing loved ones too early and when it is avoidable. On Saturday, when government released the draft proposal for the phased reopening of the economy, we recognized that many firms and workers were taking strain, and that South Africans were keen to return to work and to all the freedoms of our normal lives. The framework was based on a step-by-step reopening of the economy. The President announced that the country will go to level 4, which means that the risk of infection continues to remain high, and that healthcare systems are not fully geared up to support the very large numbers of people who will go to hospital if the virus spreads at a very fast rate. At the same time, level 4 allows for an easing of the lockdown measures so that the economy can pick up speed and help to get people into jobs. Government has developed a number of proposals to enable more firms to open up their operations. In some cases, it's a partial reopening. In some cases, it's a full reopening. We had, as Minister Dlamini Zuma indicated, a very short but a very valuable consultation process. Over 48 hours, many South Africans wrote in. Firms, individuals, trade unions, and they took time to do the submission. The process of public consultation allowed those concerns to be raised with government. In all, just looking at the sectors, the business organizations, unions, and so on, we received more than 850 submissions. Many firms said, please reopen our business. Or if their business is already open, partially, they said, let us expand more. Many pointed to suppliers that they depend on who should also be allowed to reopen. As government, of course, we want to reopen the economy and get full production and employment back as quickly as possible. But this has to be carefully balanced with the need for a deliberate and cautious approach to easing the lockdown measures, so as to limit movement of people. The virus doesn't move, it's people that move. We shift the virus in society. And this cautious approach allows us to ease the lockdown measures, and it means whether it's at the workplace or in the shopping area or in other commercial sites, how can we ensure that we don't, in fact, spread the virus and get back to a point where the economy goes into level 5? Many views were given to us. Some of the views were that we should be careful not to reopen too quickly. Others said, please move as fast as is possible given the health risk. We took careful account of the many submissions we received, and we were reading through them from Saturday afternoon right through to late last night. There were a number of very helpful suggestions and comments from business organizations, unions, and members of the public. And we'll be giving some of the proposals further thought, including engaging with representative organizations. A number of the ideas have already influenced what has been gazetted tonight. Even though not all the ideas could be accommodated in the regulations, we continue to consider them. They'll influence the directions that cabinet members will be issuing in the next few days and weeks. Some new regulations that may become necessary with time, and of course, the level 3 arrangements that will be put in place. So all of those comments have been valuable to us. Our main focus must be to avoid a significant rise in infection rates that lead to loss of life, and in fact takes us back, that many of the gains that has been made through these enormous sacrifices that firms and workers and consumers and others have made, we must not give up those gains by how we reopen the economy. Level 4 will be an important preparation to get our economy and the place where we work ready for COVID. It will prepare the economy for the next 6 to 8 months, because the scientists are telling us that we must prepare for a strong period where the virus will still be circulating very actively in our economy and in our society, at least for 6 to 8 months. So the public representations allowed us to make some adjustment to what we published on Saturday, and it will now shape our thinking going forward. In the manufacturing sector, where we make the things that we buy and sell and that our economy and our people depend on, that manufacturing sector is currently open for the production of food and healthcare products and hygiene products and some packaging, some limited baby products and fuel production. It will now be expanded during level 4 to include more factories and more workplaces opening, with 30% of all workers in manufacturing as a whole being able in a phased way to get back to work, but also higher levels for certain identified sectors. For example, 50% of the workforce, that's half the workforce, will be phased back to work, not all on the same day, but in phases, in sectors like in the automobile manufacturing value chain. And this will include small and medium enterprises who produce the components that go into the cars. It will include the steel and metal sector. It will include cement and construction materials, rail and shipbuilding, stationery production, and manufacture of winter clothes, winter shoes, bedding and heaters. We will also have some factories going into full production, like those who will continue at full production in paper making and packaging and baby products. But we've added plastics to the list, as well as an expanded number of personal toiletries made here in South African factories that we can proudly use. Where an industry may only have a percentage of workers at work, companies should structure their work rotation or their work arrangements so that they rotate people, so that every worker is able to have a chance to work, even though it won't be on the normal basis. The construction industry will also increase a number of economic activities, covering civil engineering for public works in areas like water and energy and sanitation, but also road and bridge projects, including local road repairs. The retail sector will increase its level of activity, covering stores and spazas, e-commerce, as well as informal traders. There will be a wider list of personal toiletries in the new regulations, and shops selling children's clothing and winter clothing together with shoes and bedding will be able to operate, as will stores selling stationery and educational books, as well as computers and cell phones and other home office equipment. Sales of hardware to the general public has been opened or will be opening under the new regulation, and a gradual opening of car sales will be set out in directions that will be published shortly. Car hire services will be open for servicing the companies that are operating in level 4. A number of persons have raised issues around e-commerce, and this, of course, relates to online selling and home deliveries. E-commerce will be expanded incrementally. As an immediate step, deliveries of a larger list of products will be possible, and it will be expanded further during level 4. It will now include products like winter clothing and bedding, and a longer list of personal toiletries, hot foods for delivery, products like stationery and educational books and computers and cell phones. On international trade, our imports and exports, we've started with a gradual reopening with additional products that are now permitted to be imported. Government will be looking to expanding the list in future. Exports of what we make and grow in South Africa will be opened for a wider range of products, and we've eased trade arrangements with our neighbors for goods that are in transit to neighboring countries. While many more of our port facilities will be opening, I wish to make an appeal to everyone to do everything possible to support local manufacturers and proudly South African-made products, because that will create demand here at home in the local economy and keep money circulating here, helping us to heal from the economic damage caused by COVID-19. Information and communication technology services will now be open for all private and business customers, and they cover things like repairs of equipment, data processing and activities, and software consulting and supply. In the media sector, my colleague has already covered that production for TV, radio, and other broadcasts will be open, and live streaming sessions with creative sector is provided for. Call centers will be able to expand their services to international customers on a wider scale, but with strict health protocols and social distancing arrangements in place. Many people wrote into us to draw attention to problems of cars that broke down in the last few weeks of the lockdown. And many people, of course, rely on their vehicles during medical emergencies and to get to work. Emergency repairs involving cars and emergency repairs at home will now be open for business, and they will cover things like plumbers, electricians, locksmiths, the people who fix windows and roof repairs. We heard from many businesses about the importance of their supply chain, and those are the companies that supply fabrics and components and stationery and so on. And the regulations will now allow for these key inputs and supplier industries to restart operations. We recognize, of course, as government, that this is not the full list. Other colleagues will be adding to the list. Minister Didiza is here. She'll be talking about agriculture. And even with that, it's not a full reopening of the economy. It will leave many firms closed and others operating at less than 100% capacity. But that is the terrible price we pay for a virus that has caused devastation across the world and the loss of more than 200,000 lives, mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers, grandparents who have died. We're deeply concerned about jobs and the impact of COVID-19 on employment. The opening will mean, however, that all of agriculture will be open, and about half of mining and close to half of manufacturing, and a growing number of retail, professional and personal services. It will require that firms must plan very carefully how they reopen. We ask every medium to large firm to put a proper plan together to look at rotation of staff for those who are not yet on full operation, to look at arrangements involving employees who are age 60 or over, so that they are able to work from home, to look at health protocols to screen workers when they come to work and when they leave, and to provide sanitizers in public areas and in workstations, and to have arrangements in every workplace of social distancing of 1.5 meters between workers. An increasing number of professionals are beginning to work from home, and this will of course add to our economic output without increasing the risk of the virus. The main challenge, one that has been highlighted by my colleague that I really want to underline, is to implement a phased and cautious return to work, and to do it successfully without a rapid spread of the virus. If we can achieve that, and if we can increase the level of testing of our people, it can lay the basis to move to level 3 and step by step get back to greater levels of production and greater levels of normality. We must work together with our people, with businesses, with workers, with consumers to get there as quickly as we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleague Patel. He has covered the various sectors that will be opened now at various levels of those sectors. Before we take questions, I would like to take one sector, the agriculture sector. So that's his Togo. You just speak to that sector for a few minutes. That's one sector that's very important. All of us can't live without that sector. That's Minister Titiza.
Thank you very much, Minister Mthembu, my colleague, Minister Dlamini Zuma, our chairperson of this committee, Minister Patel, Minister Lamula, Minister Cele, and Minister Mtswaledi. Thank you very much, colleagues of the media present and those who are in other parts of the country, fellow South Africans and the world. Thank you very much indeed. As Minister Mthembu says, that agriculture is one of those important and critical sectors of our economy, not only for the economy, but also for our own livelihoods. In the beginning, I would like to say thank you very much to all the farmers as well as the farm workers who have kept the country fed and food secure even during this time. I also want to thank those workers who are working in the food industry, who are ensuring that some of our primary production can be processed so that we can eat them as nice delicacies. I know we share that constituency with Minister Patel, but since he didn't thank you, I would like to do so on behalf of both of us. Indeed, agriculture